I recently lost my brother, and so my husband and I had to travel to attend his funeral. This has been an incredibly difficult time for me, as you can probably imagine. My brother and I shared a very special bond because we lost our parents when we were quite young, and from that point on, we leaned on each other and became each other's support system. Losing him so suddenly, especially in such a tragic way because of an accident caused by a drunk driver, has been extremely hard for me to process. To make things even harder, it wasn't just me who lost someone dear. He left behind his wife and children who are now struggling with their own grief. My husband and I stayed with them for 2 weeks after the funeral to be there for them in any way we could, whether it was helping with everyday tasks, making sure they had meals, or simply offering emotional support. We wanted them to know they weren't alone in this. It was heartbreaking to see the pain they were going through. This week, when we finally returned home, we were surprised to see our entire house had been rearranged from top to bottom. At first, panic set in. We immediately thought someone had broken in, but after checking the windows and doors, we realized there were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was missing, no valuables had been taken, and yet everything inside our home looked different. Our living room looked nothing like the way we had left it. The sofas had been moved around into a completely different layout. My plants, which I had carefully placed in spots where they thrived best under the sunlight, had been shifted elsewhere. My husband and I had set up our kitchen in a way that made things easy and convenient for us. But now everything was shuffled. Our toaster and coffee machine, things we used every day, were no longer on the counter, but stuffed away in storage. The spice rack had been reorganized and our pantry items were placed in different spots, making it hard to even find where anything was. As we continued to look around, we went up to the guest bedroom, only to find that it, too, had been changed. The bed sheets and curtains had been swapped out for different ones. Someone had clearly gone out of their way to redecorate, as if they were trying to put their own touch on our home. It was unsettling, to say the least. This is when I slowly realized that there was only one person who could have done all this: my mother-in-law. She was the only one with a spare key to our place, but we had given it to her years ago and strictly only for emergencies. My husband and I had made it very clear at the time that she was never to enter our home without our explicit permission. I turned to my husband and asked if he had allowed his mother to come in while we were away. He immediately shook his head, and to get to the bottom of it, he called her and put the phone on speaker so we could both hear her response. He asked my mother-in-law straight up if she had come into our house, and she admitted right away that she had, in fact, let herself in. She told us that since she knew we were at my brother's funeral, she had decided to enter our house to water our plants. I took a deep breath and thanked her for that because honestly it had completely slipped my mind. Plants are really important to me. But then I asked the big question: why had she rearranged all of our furniture? She could have simply watered the plants and left, so why did she feel the need to change everything in our home? That's when she justified it by saying that as she walked through our rooms and kitchen, she felt they could use some little improvement. According to her, I have never been a good homemaker like she is, so she decided to go ahead and jazz up the space without asking us. For context, my mother-in-law always loves to bring up the fact that unlike her, I am a working woman. She has been a housewife all her life and takes great pride in that. Instead of respecting our different choices, she constantly uses it as a way to put me down. She has never been happy about the fact that both my husband and I work and earn our own money. In her mind, a wife should stay at home, take care of the household, and cater to her husband. She has always made it clear time and time again that she wishes I would just give up my job and fit into that role. But I haven't, So when she threw in that comment about being a good homemaker, I knew exactly what she was doing. She was deliberately trying to get under my skin and insult my ability to maintain our house. My mother-in-law continued to argue, insisting that her new rearrangement had brightened up the space and that she was only trying to be helpful. I was honestly stunned by how bold she was being. Not only had she entered our home without permission, but she had also taken it upon herself to change everything without consulting us. And now, instead of acknowledging that she had crossed a line, she was acting like she had done us some grand favor. My husband, trying to remain calm, told her directly that he didn't appreciate what she had done. He made it clear that while we understood she had good intentions, it wasn't okay for her to come into our home and rearrange everything without our consent. He firmly told her that next time she should call and ask first before doing anything like this ever again. That seemed to strike a nerve. My mother-in-law instantly got defensive, clearly irritated by the fact that we weren't showering her with gratitude. She snapped back, arguing that it wasn't as if she had committed some fraud by breaking and entering or had been snooping around. Instead, she claimed that she had only done it because she felt I was too busy to take care of the household properly. According to her, she had done me a favor by making our house feel more homely. That was the final straw for me. It was obvious that this wasn't just about helping. This was about demeaning me. In the past, she had always made comments about how I am too focused on my job and not enough on keeping the house organized in a way that she deems acceptable. And now she had taken it a step further by literally stepping into our home and making changes herself as if my choices weren't good enough. I was already emotionally drained from mourning my brother, and my patience was running thin. I had no energy left to sugarcoat my words or tiptoe around my mother-in-law's feelings. So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I get it. You don't think I maintain the house as well as you do, but let me remind you of something. I am a working woman with long working hours. I like going out and earning my own money. I have never depended on my husband like you have. This is why maybe our house is a bit disorganized, but me and my husband like it the way it is. Maybe you should have focused more on getting a job than keeping your house pretty, because at least then when your husband cheated on you and left, you would have had somewhere to go. Now you rely on us every month to cover your monthly expenses and bills." Mother-in-law immediately tried to argue back, but I wasn't done. "The only reason my husband can even afford to help you out is because I take care of the extra household expenses. And do you know how I can do that? Because I have a job. Also, just so we're clear, both my husband and I are adults and we can take care of our house that we bought with our own money. So for you to let yourself in and completely rearrange everything without asking us is incredibly disrespectful. I want your key back ASAP." For a moment, my mother-in-law didn't say a word. She was clearly shocked. I had never spoken to her like this before, and she wasn't expecting me to finally stand up for myself. It's true that my father-in-law divorced her and left her with nothing. He has happily moved on with someone else, while my mother-in-law is miserable and relies on us for every little bit of financial help. I have no problem helping her out since she is my husband's mother and part of his family, but I hate that she never acknowledges my contributions. Mother-in-law, instead of apologizing to me, quickly asked my husband if he was going to let me speak to her like that. She yelled that I was being rude to her for no good reason, but to my relief, my husband supported me without hesitation. He firmly told his mother that she had crossed the boundary and that it was only right for her to return the key back to us. He made it clear that we needed our privacy and that from now on she should respect our space. Offended, she tried to argue some more, but we didn't budge. She could see that we weren't going to back down this time, and in the end, she reluctantly agreed and said she would return the key the very next day. After that, my husband did apologize to me on behalf of his mother. He told me he completely supported the way I stood up to her and that she had no right whatsoever to overstep like that. While I appreciated his support, I also wanted to make sure my mother-in-law could never enter our house without our permission ever again and disrespect our boundaries. So without wasting any time, I called a locksmith immediately and had all our locks changed. I wasn't going to take any chances. If mother-in-law thought she could waltz into our home whenever she pleased, she was in for a surprise. And that evening, my husband and I worked together to undo all the changes mother-in-law had made in our house. We moved our furniture back to how we liked it, put our kitchen items back in their proper places, and made sure our home felt like ours again. The process was exhausting, but it was worth it. We wanted to reclaim our space back just the way it was before. The next morning, before heading to work, I left a note taped to our now locked front door that simply read, "Your key no longer works." Later in the day, while I was at work, my phone started blowing up. My mother-in-law was calling me several times and even left multiple voicemails. I didn't even bother checking them as I already knew what they would say. She was clearly upset that we had changed our locks, but I wasn't interested in hearing any of it. I was done playing nice with her. That night after work, my husband sat me down and told me that his mother had called him, absolutely furious. She had been screaming at him about how inconsiderate it was for us to change the locks and lock her out of our house. According to her, she had come over to not just return the key to us, but to also stock up our fridge with some of my husband's favorite home-cooked meals, as she felt that I didn't cook good enough for him. Hearing this, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. It was yet another attempt of hers to frame herself as this caring, selfless mother just trying to help, while completely ignoring the fact that she had repeatedly crossed boundaries in our house. At this point, I wasn't buying it. If she really just wanted to drop off food, she could have called us ahead, let us know, and asked if it was okay. Instead, she tried to let herself in again, proving exactly why we had to change the locks in the first place. My husband then admitted that he felt like maybe we had gone too far. He worried that by changing the locks, we might have permanently damaged our relationship with his mother. He suggested that we should apologize and try to make things right with her. And that's when I told him straight up that I don't think we did anything wrong. We didn't insult her. We didn't cut her out of our lives. We simply established firm boundaries, which were long overdue. Changing the locks wasn't about punishing her. It was about ensuring that our home remained our private space, just as it should have been from the start. She had already ignored our clear rule about not entering without permission. So why should we apologize for protecting our own home? I told my husband, setting boundaries doesn't mean we're being cruel. It just means we're making it clear what is and isn't acceptable. And if she truly respects us, she will eventually accept that. However, my husband has continued to believe that we might have been unnecessarily cruel to his mother. So Reddit, aita here. Update 1. First of all, my mother-in-law and I have a long history. Since this isn't the first time she has crossed boundaries. She's done things like this before, but in the past I've always tried to be more patient with her. First time she let herself into our home without telling us was right after we moved in. It was literally the second day in our new house. My husband and I had just gotten married back then, and we were still in bed that morning, exhausted from all the moving and wedding festivities. Out of nowhere, she barged into our bedroom without knocking or even calling. I screamed in horror and scrambled to cover myself up, since I usually sleep without clothes. My heart was pounding and I felt completely exposed. My husband immediately yelled at his mother to get out, furious that she had invaded our privacy like that. Later, when we confronted her about it in the kitchen, she acted like she had done nothing wrong. She claimed that she just wanted to check on us and make us breakfast before we left for our honeymoon. When I asked her why she didn't at least call or text before coming over, She just smirked and dangled her spare key in my face, saying, "That's what this key is for." I gently reminded her that it was only supposed to be used for emergencies. She had begged us for a spare key to the house, just in case, but now she was using it to barge in uninvited. My husband firmly told her that she must always call us before coming over. Over the years, she has mostly listened to that rule, but every now and then she has ignored it and let herself in without asking. I would get annoyed, but I always tried to pick my battles and let my husband handle it. However, this time was different. This wasn't just her dropping by unannounced. This was her completely rearranging our entire home without permission. She took things to a whole new level, and I'm no longer going to stay quiet about it. Normally, I don't argue with her. I try to keep the peace and let my husband deal with her when she crosses a line. But right now, I'm grieving. I just lost my brother. My patience is limited. My tolerance is gone. I'm no longer willing to bend over backwards for someone like her anymore. I need my space. She needs to understand once and for all that our home is not hers to control. The house is in both my name and my husband's. We both pay for the mortgage, which means we both have the right to decide who's allowed in our home and under what conditions. This isn't just my husband's house, and it certainly isn't my mother-in-law's. She has no right to treat it like her own or make changes as if she lives here. My husband and I are equals in this home, and we both get a say in how things are run. So when we set a clear rule that she's not to enter without permission, that rule must be respected. It doesn't matter that she's his mother. She doesn't get to override our boundaries just because she feels like it. Update 2. Guys, this is crazy. After taking some of your advice, I decided to do a thorough check of our entire house from top to bottom. Since she had already rearranged all our furniture and kitchen, I figured there might be other things she had done while we were away. So I just wanted to make sure my mother-in-law hadn't made any more changes that we hadn't noticed yet. While I was in the living room, I noticed something that had never caught my eye before. A few years ago, my mother-in-law had given us a small, elegant clock that she insisted would look perfect in our living room. I thanked her and placed it on a shelf near our TV where it had been sitting ever since. I had never really noticed anything different with the clock, but when I looked closer, I noticed something red inside the face of the clock. My heart started pounding. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but something about it seemed wrong. I grabbed my iPhone and flashed the light directly onto the spot. My stomach dropped as I took a closer look, and that's when I realized what it was. A tiny blinking red light. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I leaned in, my hands shaking, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It looked like a camera. It was a hidden camera disguised inside a gift she had given us years ago. My hands started shaking as I inspected it further. I had never noticed it before, but now that I was looking at it closely, I was absolutely certain we had never installed cameras in our house. I immediately started scanning the rest of the room, but thankfully there were no other cameras that I could find. I felt sick. I called out to my husband right away, my voice shaking, and told him to come and look. He rushed over, and the moment he saw the camera inside the clock, his face turned pale. He looked just as shocked and confused as I was. I demanded to know if he had any idea that his mother had installed cameras inside the clock. Maybe he had forgotten to tell me about it, but he denied it completely. He swore he had no idea about it. He responded that he would never install cameras in our living room without discussing it with me first, and would never do so without my knowledge. His reaction made it clear this wasn't something he had done. That's when the horrifying realization hit us both. Mother-in-law had knowingly gifted us this clock, which had a camera inside it so that she could watch us. She had planned this. She had wanted access to our lives when we weren't aware of it. And the worst part was that we had unknowingly kept this thing in our home for years. We felt violated. Our privacy had been invaded in the most disturbing way possible. My entire body went cold. I felt sick to my stomach. How long had she been watching us? Had she seen us in our private moments? Had she listened to our conversations? Had she been spying on us in our own home, where we were supposed to feel safe? I guess this is when a lot of things started to make sense. Looking back, there has been so many moments where my mother-in-law seemed to know more than what we actually told her. At the time, we always brushed it off as mere coincidence or maybe just her being unusually intuitive, but now I could see the pattern. For example, if my husband and I had a private conversation in our home just between the two of us about something as small as running out of milk, somehow the next day his mother would just happen to show up at our doorstep holding a fresh packet of milk. She would act like it was just a lucky guess, saying things like, "Oh, I just thought you might need some." And then there were the times we had talked about going on vacation. Whenever we finally caught a break from work and sat down together to discuss travel plans, within an hour or two, his mother would suddenly call my husband, insisting that he needed to visit her more. She would guilt trip him and talk about how she was feeling lonely or how it had been so long since they spent time together. Sometimes she would even go as far as making plans for him without asking. It always felt a little strange how perfectly timed these things were, almost like she had a sixth sense. But now I realized that it had nothing to do with intuition. She had been listening, watching, spying on us through this hidden camera. This is how she knew things she shouldn't have known. And suddenly, all those little coincidences weren't just coincidences at all. They were invasions of privacy disguised as thoughtful gestures. I looked over at my husband and I could see the shock and disgust on his face. He was speechless. Just staring at the blinking light inside the clock, it was as if everything was crashing down on us all at once. The reality of what his mother had done, the sheer betrayal of it. And the biggest, most terrifying question of all, what else had mother-in-law done behind our backs? Did she have more cameras installed in our house? Did she have one in our bedroom? This wasn't just crossing a boundary. This wasn't just overstepping. This was literal spying. It was a complete invasion of our personal life. For now, my husband and I are just taking some time to process everything. It's overwhelming, the betrayal, the violation, the sheer invasion of privacy. I can't sleep. Every time I think about it, my skin crawls. I feel like my home, the one place that was supposed to be my safe space, has been compromised in the worst way possible. I feel disgusted, violated, completely grossed out. I can't shake the feeling that I've been watched in my most private moments, in my own home, where I was supposed to feel safe. I don't even know how to exist in this space right now without feeling paranoid. How do I just sit in my own living room without wondering if someone's watching me? I need justice. I need accountability. I've told my husband that I want to call the police tomorrow in the morning and report mother-in-law. This isn't just an overbearing mother-in-law issue anymore. This is stalking, and it feels downright criminal. My husband actually agrees with me, but I can see that he's struggling. He's torn, trying to wrap his head around the fact that his own mother has done this to us. I can't even imagine what's going through his mind right now. He grew up trusting this woman, loving her, and now he's faced with the reality that she has been secretly invading our lives for God knows how long. It's a lot to take in. Update 3. It's been a month now since my last update, and so much has happened. After taking time to process everything, my husband and I made the difficult decision to report my mother-in-law to the authorities the very next day. It wasn't an easy choice, especially for my husband, but we both knew that what she had done was a serious violation of our privacy and our trust. As soon as we filed the report, the police arrested my mother-in-law. Detectives came to our house to conduct a full investigation. They searched every inch of our home, carefully inspecting places we hadn't even thought to check. And that's when they made another horrifying discovery. There was a second camera in our living room. That meant my mother-in-law had multiple cameras to spy on us. Every conversation we ever had, every moment we shared in what was supposed to be our private space, she had access to it all. Later, when the police confronted her about it, she refused to take any accountability at first. She kept brushing off their questions, avoiding direct answers, and repeatedly saying that she wanted to speak to my husband first and clear up any misunderstandings. It was like she thought she could manipulate her way out of this, and if she could just talk to him privately. But the detectives didn't let up. Their questioning went on for a while, and eventually they wore her down. And that's when she finally cracked and admitted to what she had done. She told the detectives that she had installed the cameras for the sake of my husband. She claimed that she just wanted to be able to check in from time to time just in case something went wrong. She actually had the audacity to say that this was for his protection. She argued that anything could happen at any time. What if there was a break-in? What if something bad happened to her son? She even justified that she needed to keep an eye on things in case I did something to her son. She wanted the detectives to believe that her constant surveillance was out of love and concern, not obsession and control. When asked about the bedroom camera, she admitted that she had only recently installed it. It wasn't there for years like the living room camera. This was new. She had placed it above our curtains, hidden in a way that we would never have noticed unless we had gone looking for it. She swore up and down that she had always planned to tell us about it eventually, as if that somehow made it okay. She kept insisting that it wasn't really that big of a deal and insisted that she could just talk to her son and clear things up. But the detectives made it crystal clear to her that this was in fact a very huge deal. What she had done was illegal. It was an invasion of privacy, a serious criminal offense. No matter how much she tried to frame it as concern for her son's well-being, the law didn't see it that way. She had been spying on us without our consent, and now she had to face the consequences. That week, after mother-in-law's arrest, we went over everything with the detectives. They were thorough, explaining what charges could be pressed against her. Illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, and harassment. They also told us that because she had installed cameras inside our bedroom, the charges could be even more serious. The detectives asked us if we wanted to press full charges, and I didn't even hesitate. Yes, we absolutely did. My husband was hesitant at first. He still had some part of him that wanted to believe his mother wasn't a complete monster. But after a long beat, he realized that there was no justifying what she had done. So for now, we are moving forward with our case. As for mother-in-law, she did try to reach out to my husband after she was released on bail. She called my husband over and over, leaving voicemails where she sounded hysterical. She begged him to drop the charges, saying that she was just looking out for him and that she never meant any harm. She even had the audacity to say that I was the one turning him against her because there was no way that he could have filed any case against her without me instigating him. When he didn't respond, she began calling me and left voicemails filled with profanities. I sent her a text stating that everything she says to me will be used in court and that I would ensure she received an even harsher sentence. That seemed to silence her. I then immediately blocked her number. After my mother-in-law's arrest, the rest of the family started reaching out to us, and everyone is shocked by the lengths she went to in order to invade our privacy. They have all shunned her and want nothing to do with her. Update 4. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I finally have some good news. Mother-in-law was officially charged and has now been sentenced to 2 years in prison. The court took her actions very seriously, especially after seeing the evidence, the hidden cameras, the recordings of her confession, the sheer extent of her violation of our privacy. Throughout the trial, she refused to take full accountability, but the judge and prosecution didn't spare her. My husband and I both testified in court, explaining how violated and betrayed we felt. It wasn't easy for him, despite everything. This was still his mother, but he stood by me every step of the way. Along with her 2-year prison sentence, the court also granted us a permanent restraining order. This means that even after she gets out, she can never come near us again. If she violates this order, she could face even harsher legal consequences. Looking back, I can't believe how much we tolerated before finally standing up for ourselves. Mother-in-law had been crossing boundaries for years, and we kept giving her chances. This entire ordeal taught me an important lesson. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they have the right to invade your life. Some people will never respect your boundaries unless you enforce real consequences. And in this case, the consequences were necessary. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel sorry for her. I feel free. And that, to me, is the most satisfying ending I could ask for. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.